It's that time of the year again, as we usher in the festive season, enjoy cooler weather, and look forward to time with family and friends. And there's no better time to do this than December. After all, school is out and people are clearing their annual leave. In fact, at the time of recording, there's even greater reason for festive cheer, as the government has announced that now up to 5 visitors may gather in homes for meals, in what the government has called the transition phase to COVID-19 resilience. The transition phase to COVID-19 resilience. I know, right? What a mouthful. And truth be told, I pity the guy who has the task of coming up with the names of all the different phases to Singapore's fight against COVID-19. I mean, it's really a difficult job. Think about it. This guy has the unenviable task of defining as concisely as possible what the government hopes to achieve in each phase of the fight. And names are important. After all, the names signal to us ordinary Singaporeans what to expect next. And the names, therefore, have to be chosen with great care. Speaking of names, this Christmas season, as Christians celebrate the birth of Jesus some 2,000 years ago, allow me to share with you 2 names that were given to Jesus that first Christmas. Because unlike the names of the COVID phases in Singapore, these 2 names given to Jesus have come to define him for the next 2 millennia, and their implications are not just for a phase or a season, but stretch into eternity. The first of these names is Emmanuel. But where does it come from and what does it mean? Well, on that first Christmas, Matthew, an eyewitness of Jesus' life, recording history for us, quotes this name Emmanuel from the writings of a Jewish prophet named Isaiah, writing 700 years before the birth of Jesus, or 700 BC. Matthew describes the birth of Jesus as fulfilling the prophecy of Isaiah, that the virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. Emmanuel, God with us. God with us is the name that makes sense of the life of Jesus as recorded for us in 4 separate biographies called the Gospels, which you can find in any Bible today. These biographies record the life of Jesus as he walked this earth 2,000 years ago. And what's recorded for us there clearly demands an explanation. How do we explain the fact that Jesus happened to feed 5,000 men with just 5 loaves and 2 fishes and could calm a storm with just a word? Emmanuel, God with us. How do we explain that his teaching has shaped modern civilization as we know it today? Emmanuel, God with us. How do we explain the fact that he was executed and then rose from the grave after being certified dead and buried by multiple eyewitnesses? God with us. No other explanation makes sense of the life of Jesus except for the fact that he was truly Emmanuel, God with us. Now, a skeptic may say, this is all just a made-up story, the stuff of legends. But the Gospels contain too much historical detail. The specific names of people and places, specific historical events, as well as weather phenomena. And even the non-Christian historical sources are entirely consistent with this, and they situate the Gospel accounts of Jesus firmly in the area and time where Jesus lived. In fact, no serious historian doubts that Jesus was a real person who lived where and when the Gospel said he did. Now, other skeptics may say, well, Jesus was a great teacher, but after he died, his followers got a little bit carried away, and so they tweaked the message and now claim that he was God. But a moment's reflection reveals that such a theory is simply not credible, because the earliest followers of Jesus have very little incentive to do this. If you think about it, the Christian message, for lack of a better word, is completely outrageous. It claims that a convicted and executed Jewish criminal was God Himself in human flesh, and it calls on followers of Jesus to follow His example of self-sacrificial love at great cost to themselves, putting the interests of others above their very own. There simply is no prestige or money or glamour in this for the earliest Christians. In fact, for the first 300 years of Christianity's existence, Christians were heavily persecuted. Yet how is it that this outrageous message has spread across the entire globe, such that hundreds of millions of people today profess to be followers of Jesus? No other explanation makes sense except for the fact that Jesus is exactly who the Gospels claim He is. Emmanuel, God with us. And that's so awesome because the Christian faith is not about rituals or rules. It's about knowing and trusting and believing in the person of Jesus, who is none other than Emmanuel, God with us. But it does leave us asking the question, why? Why would God, the creator of the universe, discard the dignity of His heavenly throne to descend into the darkness of this disordered world to be with us? Well, the answer lies in the second name given, Jesus. Jesus means God saves. But what exactly do we need saving from? Well, maybe you think we need saving from climate change. But if that's the case, we already have COP26 and future international conferences on climate change. Or maybe you think we need saving from this COVID-19 pandemic. But if that's the case, we already have the vaccines and the hope of new therapeutics and new boosters for emerging COVID-19 variants. Now, I think it's great that clever people are trying to come up with solutions to these problems, because these are real problems that cause immense suffering for many people. But fundamentally, that is not what Jesus has come to save us from. Instead, the answer lies in Matthew's record of what Joseph, Mary's fiancé, was told by an angel that first Christmas. He was told that she, that's Mary, will bear a son, and you shall call him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sin. Yes, Jesus was a great moral teacher, and his teaching was amazing. And yes, Jesus did miracles, and his miracles were simply amazing. But ultimately, Jesus had come to save his people from their sin. Now, the wrinkle in all of this is that we hear the word sin, and I think we misunderstand it. We misunderstand sin, and we either trivialize it or we sensationalize it. We trivialize sin as the sinful love for chocolate, or too much bubble tea, or one click too many on Shopee during Black Friday sale. But if sin is so trivial, why do we need saving from that? Or sometimes we sensationalize sin. Sin is the convicted murderer, the racist shooter, the serial pedophile. But if that's the case, why does Matthew think that Jesus is relevant to all of us? It's only recently that I've come to grasp that the essence of sin is our rebellion against God. And it infects all of us, all of mankind without exception. Whether rich or poor, whether educated or uneducated, whether healthy or sick, regardless of the color of our skin. It's us living in God's world without any reference to Him. It's me saying that I love this world and all the stuff that's in it, but I don't want to have anything to do with the God who created it. And since we rebels don't want to have anything to do with God even though He created this world and we live in it, it seems just and right that God should give us exactly what we want. It seems just and right that God should remove us from His presence and banish us from His goodness for all eternity so that we can have nothing to do with God forever. That would be the just thing for God to do. And yet, that is not the message of Christmas. Instead, the message of Christmas is that God sees our rebellion against Him and does not treat us as we deserve. Instead, He has compassion on us. God knows that we cannot deal with the problem of sin on our own. And so He comes Himself to earth in the person of Jesus to save us from our sin, to save us from our rebellion. And as we read the Gospels, what's so striking and beautiful is that we see that Jesus is truly the friend of sinners. He has compassion on those who are lost and acknowledge that they need rescuing from their sin. And if you read any of the 4 Gospels, they end with Jesus dying a horrific death on the cross to carry the punishment that you and I rightly deserve because of our rebellion against God, because of our sin. And as a result of that, we can be in a right relationship with God, our Creator, again. And that is what brings ultimate hope and joy to Christians during this season. To know that you and I, sinners, rebels of God, can be put into a right relationship with God again by trusting in Jesus. The joy and hope of belonging to Jesus, being His people, being loved and cherished by Him for all eternity. Jesus is God with us. Jesus is God coming to be with us, to save us from our sin. And so this leaves us with the question, will we accept this free gift of saving or salvation from God? Will we take the time to know more about God with us as He reveals Himself in the person of Jesus? If you have not heard this message before or have not seriously considered the person of Jesus, can I ask you to consider reading one of the biographies, one of the Gospels with a Christian friend or family member? Why not examine the evidence for yourself? And my prayer is that you will meet Jesus this Christmas and that you will find true hope and everlasting joy as you place your trust in Him. Happy Christmas.